Our nation's business leaders care about the quality of and access to early learning. Today, you're going to hear from neuroscientists, pediatricians, economists, education leaders, and CEOs who are investing in our future with high-quality early childhood programs.
That child care is early education. It supports working parents, which is how we think of it, and it also has a crucial impact on young children during the most important period of human development. It's really the only area of our society, of policy, which is focused on getting it right in the first place. Most other areas of policy, or every other area of policy actually, is fixing something that's gone wrong, right? And so I think that people are feeling naturally enthusiastic about the opportunity to think well about how can we get this right in the first place.
That we know, as you mentioned, Catherine, investing in our young children really has that 2-generational ROI. Again, we're improving parents' productivity at work. When they think about their kids and they're distracted by the care the kids are giving, they're not producing at the highest levels, and we really need them to be doing that. And then the second is that we really see early childhood education as the front end of the talent pipeline, and so we need to make sure that we're getting it right.
Our basic goal is to serve families and to support families and do what families need.
The experiences that an individual has, even prenatally, right, is driving the process of getting the brain wired up to do what? To be able to take in information from its world, his or her world, to process that, and then to figure out how they want to respond. That's essentially what the brain does. Child development is the foundation for prosperous communities. You've already heard that. Brains are built over time from the bottom up. Has anybody watched a 3 or 4 month old infant try to grab an object? It's embarrassing, right? They're awful. Around 7 or 8 months is when they start getting better than chance. Guess what else comes online at about 7 or 8 months? And you'll hear this later. 7 or 8 months is when social referencing starts. A child just grabs something. What's the first thing that 8-month-old infant wants to do? Look what I just did. Right? That's social referencing. That's the beginning of social emotional development in the context of building these basic skills.
I want you to think about early childhood development as economic development, and it's economic development with a very high public return, and I want to underline public, okay? But there's a number of studies where it's pretty obvious that we have been way under investing in early childhood education for our most vulnerable kids.
Patagonia has started providing childcare in 1983. That was 10 years after Yvonne and Melinda Chenard founded the company. Quite frankly, they started on-site childcare out of absolute necessity. File cabinets were being used as bassinets. There were children running around. No one could get any work done. And so Melinda Chenard had a trailer brought in, and they started providing babysitting. Lo and behold, they found out that there were rules and regulations and best practices that went along to providing on-site childcare. So they created the Great Pacific Child Development Center, hired an early childhood expert, and started providing quality childcare. Our model is mission-driven. Patagonia's mission is to build the best product, and Yvonne Chenard has often been said that it's the children that come out of the Great Pacific Child Development Center that are Patagonia's best product.
So we really look at the needs of our industry, not just the aerospace industry, and I would correct you to say we are actually not just one of the largest aerospace manufacturers in the world, we are the largest.
Duly noted.
We really think about not just our immediate workforce needs, but the pipeline that will feed the needs that we might have in 10 or 20 or 30 years. We really see our CSR work as being a combination of the grant making that we can do, the employees who we can engage, and the policy that we can help influence. And we take very seriously all 3 of those pillars within our CSR work to really think about all of the tools that we can bring to try to improve the educational system or any of the other areas in which we're involved.
We know that to provide that type of education and development, it is expensive. And the company has invested significantly in that. Yet, when I got involved with this about 5 years ago, the problem was we were underutilized at the centers because of the cost. So even for our employees with our company subsidy, it was outpriced for many of our employees, and the centers were actually being underutilized. So I led a project team over the course of the last 18 months to really reassess what we were providing, how we were providing it, and the companies that were providing that service for us. And the net result of that effort was a transition in provider that we went through last fall to Primrose Schools, who has taken ownership of managing the centers as of January. And the unique aspect of it is we were able to maintain the quality of care and curriculum and programs, which were vital to providing that high quality opportunity for our employees. But we were able to redirect our subsidy to directly reduce employee tuition. And we were able to reduce that about 20% across the board.
We, through a philanthropic venture philanthropist, the David and Laura Mirage Foundation, who really wanted to find a space where he could help improve quality childcare as well as accessibility, and really came at looking at where are folks having their children cared for. And they were in home-based care, they were in mom and pop centers, strip mall centers, wherever, where the folks were having their children cared for, and really looking at how can we come and look at that market and help strengthen that market, get it more efficient, and hopefully give them more time, more dollars, so then they can focus at what they do best. And really, what they do best, and most people that get into early childhood, they want to work with children. That's their wheelhouse. That's what they're doing. On how are we able to share resources to make them more efficient in being able to run their business, as well as the compliance side, because as we've heard today, childcare is very regulated, and you're on your own trying to figure it out. So if you're a standalone center or home, it's up to you to figure it out. Here's the regulations, figure it out the best you can. And most of the market-based childcare is doing it on paper still. They're doing it with maybe a spreadsheet. So that's where we were able to focus and look at what kind of technology can we bring to the market-based childcare so we can help offload as much of the administrative task that drags down a director and those highly educated early childhood folks into trying to run a business, and then they can't really focus on the customer, which is the child and the family.
What we need to understand is what's the outcome that we want. We want a great system that delivers talent over a lifetime. We are committed to our communities. We're committed to our employees. We're committed to the system change to make sure that this works over time. And what we had to break down was the essential elements that we had to communicate. And then we had to stand firm on one other line, and this is the most difficult line for us, and that is business has a role in this whole process. To put it bluntly, we're a crowbar. We can open doors and allow people to have conversations in rooms that oftentimes wouldn't happen because people are very passionate in trying to communicate their points of view. All 10 million businesses in Florida and business leaders in Florida to the table, to the Capitol to make those changes. What we have to do is make sure that they're communicating with each other, making the soil fertile for the right types of conversations. We know that investing as early as we possibly can helps not only a manufacturing model, but a life cycle model.
Starting young really makes a difference. And she's an example of that. And I think when I look at what Easter Seals and many organizations like them are doing is things are much more advanced than they were. Inclusive education is now part of it. It wasn't then. And I think that's made it better. It's also become more affordable in many cases because Easter Seals get support from business and community that makes it affordable. And those two things are really important.
80% of the businesses in our region really don't care about childcare or early childhood or even the schools. They care about what's happening with their business, They would never say, I don't care, but they're not going to jump in with both feet and go be an advocate. They're not going to repeat language we say. So we really have to do a lot of it for them. We're their advocates. We're the organizations that work on their behalf, and use that strong 20% and focus those messages and continue to educate that 20% of the business community on why it's in their best interest to support this. As soon as we move it to a moral issue for them, I think we lose them. It's not a moral issue for most businesses. It's a bottom line economic issue for them, and they're doing it because it's good for their business.
I know this particular group is probably, this is the choir, and there is not an elevator speech for early childhood, early ed. It's a little more difficult than that. We all have probably learned that talking to businessmen and politicians are even another matter. But what I found is there's a couple of interesting things. One is, again, back to Dr. Jana's book, is that there's got to be some effort to connect with the jargon and the language that the person you're talking to speaks in. And as businessmen, we all probably get lots of calls for donations and lots of pitches, and usually the pitches are in the language of the pitcher rather than the receiver. And it's so important to, I think, to try and figure out who those folks are that have a particular interest and how this larger subject of early ed fits into it.
You know, I mentioned this morning this was just the start, and we do have plans for the next year to take this report on the road, to visit. Our plan for now is 10 communities, but of course we would love to expand that effort and do more. We'll do these things in partnership with our state and local chambers of commerce, and you heard Tony, who's with the Florida Chamber Foundation. That's really kind of our sweet spot here at the Chamber, is that we do have this network of state and local chambers all across the country, and many of you know them well and work with them and are engaged with them. And to the extent that business leaders are really important and those CEOs and their voices can really amplify an issue, we have found that working with state and local chambers really is almost more powerful a lot of times in communities, because they are really willing to take on tough issues. They're advocates with their policymakers and in their state houses, and they're well-respected leaders in the communities.